Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I am pleased to have two of my best friends here to talk about Star Wars Death Star, the book by Michael Reeves and Steve Perry. We have two guests on the channel today. First, we have Alex. Alex, great to see you.
Hi, thank you.
And then we also have Caleb. Caleb, welcome back to the channel.
Hello.
So, what we're going to do today is talk spoilers about Star Wars Death Star by Michael Reeves and Steve Perry. If you want a general review that's going on the overview stuff, go to Caleb's YouTube channel, Caleb Likes Books. Just look up Caleb Likes Books. You will find that YouTube channel. Caleb has tremendous videos, including one with all three of us that's already come out talking about just the general review of this book. But in this video, we're going into spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled for Death Star, Alex, what should people do?
It blows. They watch the other one. They watch Caleb's video
Right.
and then watch this one, which comes out a week after or something like that.
Yes. What you do is you read the book, or if you don't care, then you can watch this. But read the book before, because yes, the Death Star explodes. But spoilers. Also, maybe watch A New Hope. That might be helpful to you.
Wow.
That might be.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I have a couple of topics I'm going to talk about, and I'll throw it off to you guys, get your opinions. One of the things we touched on in our general video that we were talking about was this book isn't talked about a lot in EU circles. When people put up their favorite books, when people talk about impactful books on the EU, this book just isn't on those lists. And yet all three of us really enjoyed it. And I have a theory, and that is that if you go to Wikipedia, you look at each of the new characters in this book, none of them are continued on. All of the main cast, who are the ones who escape the Death Star and decide to join the rebellion, they all make that decision. Well, we're all going to join the rebellion, and they're never used again. And so I think that's personally my thesis for why I think that the book just isn't talked about a lot. I'll go to Caleb first. Caleb, do you think that's right, or do you think there's another reason why the book isn't talked about a lot?
Um, I don't know. First of all, I do think that it is interesting that none of the characters used, because I just looked in my copy and it was written in 2007. So you would think there would have been something picked up there, maybe, because the EU like to do that. I can't think of any reasons necessarily. Um it's I feel like sometimes certain standalones that maybe they don't get the same push sometimes as the big series, especially where, when this was coming out, you had some of the big series coming out, you had a lot of other big books coming out. And maybe this one just flew under the radar a little bit. Um, Plus, I mean, and I don't know if this has anything to do with it or not, but maybe it being about the Death Star, where it is something so connected to the movies, maybe people thought it wasn't going to be anything new to it. Maybe I don't know. I don't have any real uh strong opinions on that or anything, but that's I guess what I've got.
You
So
you
I
bring up
have
a
no idea.
you bring up a good point of the concept of a standalone versus a true standalone, because there's other standalones like, say, Greg Bear's Rogue Planet, which is a standalone that ties into the New Jedi Order. And you have the Lost Tribe of the Sith short story collection, which is kind of standalone, but it ties into the Fate of the Jedi. So they had other standalones that were connected. This one, other than one minor character from the MedStar duology, isn't really connected to the other main series.
Mhm.
Alex, did you have something to add?
I'm just trying to think of something that was, I mean, this was released in 2007. Was there anything else that was going on in Star Wars world in 2007 that would have prevented this from getting wind? I mean, I know Death Troopers. That was a big, I heard about that before I ever read Star
Mm.
Wars books. And that what year did that come out?
I think it was around this 2007, 2008, because I
It was
remember
I
something
can
my
like
just
mass
that.
reach it. I
market
can find
copy.
out.
my mass market copy of Force Unleashed from 2008 or 2009 had an excerpt.
2009.
But yeah.
2009, so 2 years after this. And I remember seeing that like on the shelves at the
Mm,
grocery store and stuff. I've never seen Death Star like, but this is, it's subjective to me. I don't know, but it's just weird that a book as isolated as Death Troopers got so
mm.
big, whereas this one, I never even heard of
Well,
it
well,
until,
to be honest, Death Troopers has that element of the horror genre
Yeah.
that Death Star just
yeah,
It
doesn't.
has something standoutish
yeah,
to
yeah,
it
yeah,
that
you're
Death
right.
Star doesn't quite have.
Death Star is just another EU book in the sense of like how you market it. Like
Mm,
Yeah,
it doesn't have that it factor. Now it was a New York Times bestseller, so it sold a lot of copies and it did fine. But in terms of its legacy, it just didn't have that it factor for impact. And so it's going to be one of those books that while I enjoyed it, I'm just going to be like it's not going to be one I will point to and say it's a favorite or something like that. It's just going to be this is a really good book. It's not going
yeah.
to me at
yeah.
least.
That's something that I think is kind of interesting about probably the canon as well, but especially the EU, where you have certain standalones that, like, even if people really like them, like I think of something like New Rebellion, which I hear a lot of people like, or things like that, which like they might be really well liked, but there are just so many other books from that era that
Mhm.
overshadowed them that it just doesn't get talked about a lot. So I think probably something similar is going on with Death Star.
Now, I want to jump to the end first, because this was also something hinted at in our other video, which was the ending of the book where all of our main cast is they decide to leave the Death Star. They're kind of fed up. All of them are shocked post Aldderon, and they leave the Death Star, and all of them decide, hey, let's just go join the rebellion. and like there's no dissenters. They're just all kind of like, yeah, we'll just go. This was what I thought was cheesy. I was like, I get what you're going for. It's a little too fast, too cheesy for me. We'll start with Alex this time. Alex, what did you think of that ending?
Oh, I like the ending. I guess it was, I mean, fast. Assuming they probably knew this wasn't going to be, there wasn't going to do a sequel to these characters or this
Hmm.
gang of characters. At
Yeah.
least I don't think that was the plan.
They
And
could
it
have
didn't
done Death
seem
Star too.
they could have done it. Well, yeah. Imagine them going back to the second one and having to escape again. That would be, gosh, that'd be bad.
I'd
But
buy it.
yeah, I mean, I think that would be kind of enjoyable. But I don't know. I like the ending. It was fast, but it was kind of overshadowed by so much of the. I love. So this is spoiler. I love that we got the perspective of Vader,
Hmm.
all the way up until the end, and
Mm.
like, and I think it's the last chapter. Which, by the way, there's 75 chapters in this book.
Yep.
That is a ridiculous number. I mean, in the audiobook, it was no difference for me, but it's kind of crazy. But Darth Vader's perspective after it blows up. And it's just funny. He's like, oh, his master's not going to be happy about this.
Hmm.
He's got to go tell him. Like, I love that. But as far as like the new rebels, yeah, it was wrapped up pretty quick. But I guess I didn't even notice it.
How about you, Caleb?
I can get where you're coming from. I think it wasn't enough of an issue for me to really count it really as a negative, but it is something where I was like, oh, that the I do feel like compared to the lead up, the very tail end of the ending was a little weaker. Like everything, like the Battle of Yavin and everything was great, but I do think it felt a little weird. Plus, like I don't know. I'm glad the characters survived because I liked them, but at the same time, I was reading the whole. I think I even sent you a message while I was reading it, and I was like, "Oh man, I just realized all these characters are gonna die." Then they didn't. But I feel like it almost. I don't know if it would have worked better if they had died or not, but it did feel a little cheesy, I guess. But it wasn't really something I minded too much.
I think it would have worked better if more characters had died. Not if they had
Yeah,
all died, it would not. It would have been Rogue One again. But
yeah. Have like maybe one or two survivors, maybe.
yeah, or
I agree.
because I think there's like six or seven in their
Yeah,
ship when they're breaking out. It should have been like three or four. Like that should have
yeah.
been the max.
And I
And there is
liked it
one character
because
that did
all
die.
yeah, and I liked that like you had all these disparate characters kind of converging at that point, but at the
Mhm.
same time it felt kind of weird for all of them to just be like, yeah, we're gonna leave and then we're all gonna join the rebels. I mean, it kind of makes sense because they've seen the horrors of the Empire at that point very up close, but yeah, it does feel a little weird, I guess.
I do want to draw one distinction between this book and a book like Lost Stars, the both of these books comparatively explore the themes of what did people in the Empire on the Death Star think of the destruction of Alderaan.
Mm.
And in my opinion, while actually I'm not the world's biggest fan of Lost Stars, but I would say that Lost Stars really looks at the trauma and the just how horrible the action was, and then looks at how the characters react well. This book does the same thing, but it's on a smaller scale, it feels like. The characters do spend a moment in the bar thinking about what the Death Star just did, and they do come to the conclusion this is bad and we need to get out of here. But it just, to me, it just doesn't hit as well. And I think both of you have read Lost Stars. So either of you have oh, you haven't read it, Alex.
No,
Uh,
no.
okay, Caleb, do you have an opinion on that?
Actually, I don't know which one I like because I think I like the way that both of them do it, but I think they do it in a little bit of a different way.
Hmm.
But I enjoyed it in both of them, I think. Um, I might have liked it better in Death Star, actually. I like in Lost Stars that you get a look at the overall original trilogy, but I think specifically for focusing on the events of A New Hope, I might have actually liked this one a little better. Partially maybe because you get so many more different reactions to it. And I feel like the reactions, to me at least, were just a little bit more impactful in
Hmm.
some way. But I don't know. It's very well done in both of them for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Uh,
And
so
Alex, you need to read Lost Stars because it's
yes, you do.
awesome.
I know. I love Claudia Gray. I need to read it.
Yes, and that was her first book for Star Wars, and it's just
Yeah.
like, and ironically, I don't think that there's ever been a book that Star Wars fans have clamored for more a sequel, like a standalone that needs a sequel, than Lost Stars 2. And
Mm.
even Claudia's been like she'd do it, and the book sales were fine, so I don't know why they haven't done it, but hopefully they'll do that. Speaking of Star Wars books that have weird romance and sex stuff. Let's talk about in this book one of the plot lines, which was Tarkin and Admiral Dala. So
Mm.
I knew about this because the fandom talks about the fact that Tarkin and Dala were together, and it's alluded in some of the other books that they had had some sort of relationship. But you kind of get to see what their relationship was in this book. So we'll start with Caleb here. From what you remember, do you know if in the Jedi Academy trilogy, if they reference their relationship in that?
They did. I don't think it was in a lot of depth, but I've read that trilogy too many times. So I remember pretty well. But I think it's like, she's because of course in that trilogy, Dawa is not aware the Empire has fallen, so she's thinking Tarkin's still out there.
Hmm.
And it does talk about how they had been lovers and things like that, but it doesn't go into quite as much depth with it. So it was kind of interesting to actually see that. It wasn't my favorite part of the book, but it was interesting to kind of get to see like, oh, okay, she wasn't like, not that I didn't believe her initially, but it's like, okay, this actually was like a thing that very much was something they were involved in. So I don't know.
Alex, what did you think of their interesting dynamic in this book?
Well, I had no clue. I was shocked. So I think that worked for me. The shock factor of it, I had no clue. Now going back to the the Jedi Academy trilogy, I haven't read that trilogy. I haven't read a lot of the Bantam books, but like Caleb said, it's hinted at that relationship. Apparently, though, that the injury that Dala gets in this book in Death Star,
Hmm.
Hmm.
where she loses her memory, and that kind of explains some of the.
Yeah.
Apparently, that is never. Of course, it's not mentioned in the books published before 2007, before this book, but it's just weird that it's just kind of that's the explanation for
Mm.
her not remembering certain things. But yeah, the relationship I had no clue, so it worked for me, and it wasn't the best part of the book, but
Yeah.
it was interesting.
As
Added,
a big fan of the Jedi Academy trilogy, I did kind of like that. Like, it was nice to get that explanation of why she was the way she was and the relationship. But yeah, it was a little weird.
So she definitely isn't like there is a certain type of person who would, take this action of trying to like sleep their way to the top. And that's not really what Dala's doing. Dala is
Mm,
already proving herself in just about every way. But I think that she is one of the few people that can say this, and it's not as cheesy, that she really like values Tarkin for his mind,
mm.
and legitimately does find him interesting and stuff. And I think he feels the same way about her, at least in the way he describes her. Although it's kind of funny seeing, a way older man getting kind of giddy to see to be
Well,
with a
how
younger
old
woman.
is Dala? Because I
Dallas,
don't.
Pretty
I want to
So
young.
say well, I'll just say this. She is a big deal later on in the EU.
yeah,
So she can't be that old here. I think
that's
she's in her
true.
30s at
Yeah, that's
oldest.
probably
At
At
true.
most,
oldest.
yeah.
At most. Maybe late 20s. But I'm pretty sure since she's an admiral, there's no way she's an admiral in her 20s. So she's got to be 30s, I would think.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
But
that's true.
and ironically, this book is taking place. This book was written right like within a year or so before Fate of the Jedi, which also has an important Dala thread in it. So even though we were talking about how this is a standalone, it could have connected more.
Mm.
They could have, if this book had gotten into maybe Dala's aspirations in her POV a little bit more, maybe it would have been more impactful. Anyway, just the thought I had.
Mm.
I also personally want to add, I thought it was hilarious that the way that they are able to escape the Death Star is they're saying, "Oh yeah, Dala's ship was damaged. We have to go help her," and that's the excuse that they use. And of course, they're gonna be like, "Oh sure, yeah, yeah, we don't," because they know
Yeah, they were trying to
everybody.
stop him, and then they're like,
Yeah,
"No, wait, you can't stop us.
the
We're going to Dala."
everybody knows about Dala's relationship with Tarkin, and so
Mm.
they're like, no one's gonna stop them from trying to rescue her because they don't want to make Tarkin mad. What if Tarkin realizes, you're the one that is the reason, you're the reason that they didn't, the medics didn't make it in time. I thought
Mm.
that was funny.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to ask you, who was your of the original cast, the new people, who was your favorite character? We'll start with Alex.
Ratua.
Rachua?
And because in Caleb's video, okay, it's I feel like most people would pronounce it Ratua.
Mm-hmm.
The audiobook got me saying it Ratua. But anyway, it's I mentioned in Caleb's video that it's like a new species. So
Mm-hmm.
his whole introduction really just sucked me into his arc. And I think he's a pretty good character. So I am kind of upset. I don't think he's in anything else, is he?
He's not.
So
Mm.
And
right.
he
So
has this kind of like Jean Valjean kind of quality to him
I don't know
where
those words.
it's from Les Miserables.
Oh,
But Jean Valjean was a character from Les Miserables who was imprisoned for stealing a loaf of bread, put in there for 19 years. He escapes, and then he's hunted down the rest of his life by Javert, who was a cop from the prisons. And in this, you have Ratua, or as I read it, Ratua, but I guess it's Ratua. You have him who was, on this planet, serving this sentence, which, from his perspective, he describes it as being too heavy a prison sentence. We don't really get to see exactly what he did, but we know that he did something and they put him away for a long time, and he's able to escape to the Death Star right before the Death Star pretty much destroys that planet, kind of, or at least that portion of the planet. And one of the guards from Rachua's, from where he was, is on the Death Star now, and so it's kind of got that same, storyline happening. So I thought it was interesting that it kind of reminded me thematically of Les Mis. Was
hmm.
Rachua your favorite character, Caleb?
No, and by the way, soon, hopefully, I will know what the words you said meant because I am planning to put Les Mis on my TBR this fall, hopefully.
It'll take
But
the whole fall.
it
It's a
might.
long book.
Uh, so I looked it up in the book real quick, and hopefully, I'm getting the right character. Is it 10 that is the gunner? Because I think the gunner character was my favorite character.
Yeah.
Mostly because I really liked getting their perspective
Hmm.
on like just like I really liked especially like early in the book, and it's even brought up in the book where early on he's like, "Oh, I get to fire the biggest gun in the galaxy. That's so cool." And then he does it, and then he regrets all his life decisions. Um, and I really liked him and seeing his perspective and getting that like what in the world could it possibly be like to know that you did something like that and having to deal with that? So I really liked him. And just I thought I had heard prior to reading this book that one of the characters on it was the gunner who pulled the lever to destroy Alderaan and stuff. And so maybe that has something to do with it because I was very interested in that to begin with. But I think the way that was done in this book in general, like, was enough to make him like a my favorite character in it, I think.
So,
I completely agree. So Ratua is my favorite character, but Tin has my favorite moment in this book, which is the end. When I was reading it or listening to it, it 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 just kind of hit me that his hesitation, Tin's hesitation as the gunner, stand by, is likely the reason that the rebels were successful in
Mm,
preventing Yavin from being destroyed because he knew how deadly it was. Like Caleb mentioned, he he found out that it comes with consequences of firing the largest weapon in the galaxy, and that is the toll it takes on him. So by the time we get to the very end of his life and the Death Star one's life, he's hesitating, stand by, and that really, I think that works really well with the story, and it plays with A New Hope in a way that's like, oh well, he's probably the reason they were able to do it. So
yeah.
that's probably my favorite moment, even though he's a good character too. He goes from gung-ho to very serious and somber and traumatized. So
it kind of,
Yeah.
you both talking about that reminded me that, like, Catalyst, that book is pretty much looking at the architects of the Death Star. From the macro sense, you had, Krennic, who was trying to build the Death Star in the canon. And then on the lasers perspective with the whole kyber crystal and stuff, you have Galen Erso. And so that's more like, if to use the historical perspective, the Oppenheimer story of the person who's the designer. And in the movie Oppenheimer, you get to see his reaction and his radicalization after the use of the atomic bomb. But I don't think I've ever seen someone attempt a story from the perspective of the pilots who dropped the atomic bombs. I don't think I've ever seen anyone tackle that. And this book just made me think that'd be an interesting story for someone to try to tackle. How did they react afterwards? But yeah, my favorite character was not either of the ones you guys mentioned. Mine was Mima, or at least I assume that's how you pronounce it. Is that how the audiobook pronounced it, Alex?
yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really liked Mima because she had a lot of business discussions. And of course, people who are fans of my channel know I love business. So she has several, at the beginning of the book, she is basically a pub worker, or a pub owner, and on a planet. I think it's Coruscant, if I'm remembering right. And she owns this pub and works it, and Rodo is her bouncer for the pub, and he does a great job. And she gets this offer to come work on the Death Star. And what I liked about it was the Death Star did not just use Imperial resources the whole time because they couldn't, because there was not enough personnel, there was not enough, there was not enough people, resources to just make it all government employees. So what did they do? What most governments do, they contracted out. And so they contract in this book to get Mima and Rodo to come up and manage the pub on that level, on that particular level. It's not the only pub on the Death Star, but it's on that level at least. And it's interesting because she has to weigh the choices of would she make more money on the Death Star or not. And she pretty much knows this is a pretty big station. I don't think she knew the extent of what its capabilities were, but she knew it was, a big space station. But it's interesting to see her leave behind the safe job on Coruscant, which is, she has a built-in client stuff, and she decides to go to the Death Star. And it was interesting to see. My favorite scene in the book is the scene where she's working with the Imperial, and she's basically negotiating and trying to see how much she can get out of it. And she pretty much knows she's going to go, but anyway, that was my favorite part of it.
Mm.
I did want to ask you guys about this. So at the beginning of the book, it seemed to me that people pretty much knew that there was a Death Star. Like this, the beginning of the book's a couple years earlier, and people it's not a secret. It's not
Mhm.
like used in hush hush terms. pretty much it seemed like they people were just talking about it as the Death Star. And to me, that just, because in the canon, like nobody talks about it until
Very
right
different.
before. It's very different, very hush hush, very, very code name. If they're talking about it, it's a code name. Here, they're just saying, oh, they're saying, yeah, we're going to that space station. Oh, is that the Death Star thing? Yeah, that's what we're calling it right now. Did that strike either of you any particular way?
I noticed it for sure because I, especially having just come off of Andor season two recently, where they are finding out that the Death Star exists weeks before A New Hope. I was like, oh, it's interesting that it's like such a thing that people know about already. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.
I didn't even notice it, to be honest. I didn't even notice. I guess it makes sense, and I haven't read Catalyst, and I haven't seen Andor season two. I'm a fake
Wait,
fan,
what?
but
Shame.
yeah, I
What?
know, I know.
Shame.
I don't have Disney
Hey,
account,
hang on a
but
second. You're saying Caleb has seen a show before you?
let's move on. The um, yeah, no, I actually didn't even notice it. But I guess it is kind of weird because let's see. I don't think even in the canon. Tell me, Jonathan or Caleb. Caleb, if you read Catalyst,
No, not yet.
you said that they don't even they mention it in code word. They don't even talk. It's super secret. So,
I'll say this since you haven't seen Andor. In one of the final episodes of Andor, someone says the words Death Star, and it's like a bomb dropping. Like it's a shock. It is what?
oh,
We
I
don't
see.
use that. We don't. You don't use that word. Only we use that word. Like
Oh, I
they do
see.
not use that word. It is a big deal.
Hmm.
And really in the canon, that's how, because they call it Operation this or Operation that, and
Right.
they avoid using the term so that people don't know. Um,
Right. And I think the only book that I've read in canon that relates to that is Thrawn Treason, where they
mhm.
mention yeah, I think you've read that, Jonathan.
Yeah.
It's yeah, because Thrawn and well, I don't want to spoil that book, but it's there's code words in that. So but I didn't even think about it. It didn't cross my mind, but
And
yeah,
interestingly, one of the criticisms that Rogue One had was that I saw people saying, "I thought the first use of the Death Star was on Alderaan. Why are they showing it as like pretty much destroying these places beforehand?" And I assume all the people that said that had not read Death Star because it's not fully armed and operational, but it's
4%.
armed. It is, yeah. What'd you say?
4%.
No, 4%.
4%. Right,
It's like
right.
4% armed, and they do destroy stuff with the laser and like test it a
Mm.
little bit on that planet. And so to me, it was interesting. I'm like, hey, the canon and the EU are matching up in the sense of they're using the Death Star ahead of time for Alderaan because they wouldn't make Alderaan the first time they used it ever because they would want to make sure it's at least somewhat functional beforehand. But he says, a full test. Like
Yeah.
this is a test of its full capabilities. So to me, that just seemed logical that they would use that.
And even at 4% power, it still caused
Yeah.
enough change in the atmosphere and everything to annihilate the all of the life on the planet in one or two hits,
Hmm.
which is crazy.
Yeah. I also wanted to bring up the in the book, you get to see like the reactions to the Death Star from to its action in the second half of the book. But in the first half of the book, all of the characters are on the Death Star or they're serving their different roles. And one in particular I thought was fascinating was we haven't talked about him at all was the character of Dance, I believe it is. I'm getting the name Billian Dance, and he's a character that he all he wants to do is like be an ace. And then in one of the battles towards the middle of the book, he gets to be an ace and he kind of is disappointed by it. I wanted to see what you guys thought of his character and him being disappointed once he got his life's goal, his achievement.
Caleb.
I have no strong thoughts on this. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I
Um,
thought Alex's reaction was very funny though when you said his name and it looked like he had no idea who you were
yeah,
talking
I
about.
didn't. I don't even think it mentions his last name. Well, I've listened to the book, so I don't know, maybe, and I listened to it at 2 times speed, so maybe I just missed it. But yeah, no, I remember the character, and
I do too.
I remember him outflying, or not outflying. He outran Darth Vader
Yeah.
when it blew
Yeah.
up. Yeah, which was very interesting. But yeah, I felt like his character could have done more. Like I didn't dislike it, but there was not a lot of stuff he did. It was just kind of weird. And that's another thing about this book that there is such a huge cast of characters, like 11 people,
Yeah.
POV. And we only spend a lot of time with like 3 or 4 of them, maybe,
Yeah.
Hmm.
And like I like all of them, but I just wish there was more. Like I wouldn't mind if this book was like 600 pages. Like I know that's not feasible or practical, but that would have given a lot more character work. So I would have cared about him more if we would have got more backstory. But the
Yeah.
only noticeable thing I remember was him outrunning Vader at
Yeah.
the end.
I would say
That's
that
kind of how sorry.
I was gonna say the book either should have been 600 pages with the same cast of characters, or kept it at 450, well, or at least 430 in my version,
Mhm.
but shorten the cast a little bit. Not a ton, but decrease the number of POVs, replace the pages of those POVs with the current ones, just add a little bit more. And again, I'm saying it's a
Yeah,
good book, but
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
Now,
He was
if
one of those characters that like I enjoyed when he was on the page, but never left the biggest impression. Like not one of my favorite characters from the book, even though like I enjoyed him. So
If Jonathan's audience wants to read a series with a lot of POVs, Book of the Fallen Malazan, just go to read it. Don't listen to his criticism about it. Don't listen to, look, you probably don't agree with Jonathan on everything about book related. Just go read it. It's fine. Anyway,
I can't believe you
don't
think you got it
don't
in.
edit that out.
I'm not editing that out.
Okay.
Oh
you
man,
have to
I
bring
can't
it up
believe
anytime you possibly can.
uh, we do spaces where we talk a lot, and it's like a running gag that Alex is gonna fit in about
Not a
Sam.
gag to me.
Good job. Well, we
You get a
already
gold
like
star.
we all rated the book when we did the non-spoiler version. So I thought we'd end it a little bit differently. I
Oh
would
boy.
like each of you to talk about with your favorite characters, or if your favorite character died, go to a different character, but to talk about what you think actually happened to them, since we don't actually know, since there was nothing else written after this. So for Alex, what happened to Ratua after this book?
Okay. I'm going to change your question a little bit, and I'm not going to predict what happens after. I'm going to try and predict what happened before. I think
Ooh.
Rachua is actually Jar Jar Binks in a different skin. That's what I think because I liked him so much. So that's my, little theory on that. No, it's not real, but that's all I got for you. I just wanted to also bring up, did you guys notice at the beginning, not to change the thing, but
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Tarkin, like I think it's mentioned in other books that I've read because it seems so familiar, but at the very beginning, Tarkin suspected that Vader was Anakin, if you remember
Yeah.
that from the
Hmm.
very beginning. And I feel like I've read another book where that it might have been Tarkin by
Yeah.
Lucino that happened.
They address that in
I
that.
think
Yeah.
I think that I think that's got to be it. But I thought that was funny that yeah. So in the new canon and the old canon, Tarkin basically knew who it was,
Mhm.
which is very interesting. But yeah, no, Rachua is Jar Jar. That's my theory.
This is the new Darth Jar Jar theory.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
least talked about on Reddit.
The
It's like
least talked about.
this is the one that's like on the Darth Jar Jar subreddit. It's like the least upvoted one.
Yeah.
Well, Caleb, you want to dodge that question, or you want to try it out?
Well, my favorite character died, so
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do you want to try imagine what another character what happened to them?
um let's see. I don't know.
I'm going to my imagination is going to be that Mima and Rachua settled down, had a family. Roto is the weird uncle, third wheel that stayed with them the whole time, and they started a pub on Wills on another planet, and
Hmm.
maybe well I was gonna say Endor, but that doesn't work. Now maybe they did it on Chandrilla.
The bar is called Jar Jar Drinks. That's the bar name.
Yeah.
Um,
Perfect.
No, I would predict what happened to this one obscure character from the book called Darth Vader. So no.
do we know what happens to him?
Hmm.
Yeah.
He's got some family problems.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think that's what he's got going on.
Yeah. And I want to make a reference to another TV show that gets connected to Star Wars with Robot Chicken, where they have the running gag that there's the guy cleaning up the place, and first Darth Maul goes splat, and then they have to clean him up, and then he says, "Oh man, I need to transfer to Coruscant," and he goes to Coruscant, and Mace Windu goes splat, and he has to clean it up. He says, "I need to transfer the Death Star." I imagine that's what these guys. They're like, "Man, that was all terrible. We need to get out of here," and then somehow they end up on Death Star 2, and they're like, "Oh
Yeah.
man, this is terrible. I hope we never go on a super weapon." And then they're on the Sun Crusher, and they're like, "Really? How do we keep getting on these
Well,
places?"
the Sun
yeah.
Crusher is a single person.
I know.
It'd be pretty
Okay.
cramped.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Ah.
You said I'm going to bring up a TV show. I was like, is he about to talk about The West Wing, like
Yeah, that's
Alex
what I
talked about
thought.
in the last one?
That's what I thought. This we would have to do about four of these.
Yeah, and we do
I
not have
think.
time. So I'm going to take a quick second and Caleb, where can people find you online and on the booktubes?
So I have a channel called Caleb Likes Books where I do book related stuff. And the first part of our discussion is on there. So if you want to hear general thoughts on the book outside of spoilers, you can go check that out. And yeah, so
And Alex, if people want to interact with you online somewhere, where should they find you?
Oh, I don't even know. No, I'm on Twitter at Santhed Enjoyer, but I don't do anything on there. So all I have to say is please support your local bookstores and your public libraries. So that's I don't have anything to plug.
Good answer. Good answer. And of course, you can find me, Jonathan Cohn, on Twitter and Goodreads and here. So, and thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
thank you.
And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.